You mean the charred disaster of a casserole? It's called creativity. Besides, the smoke detector needed a workout. Zaire walked closer, the air thickening with an electric tension that hung between them. I think it would prefer to avoid you in the future. He leaned against the counter, his proximity sending her heart racing. Maybe I should stick to coffee then, less chance of fire. She handed him a steaming mug, and their fingers brushed slightly, a soft spark igniting. She looked down, momentarily caught in the small, electric connection, his dark skin, warm and protective. He took a sip, his eyes narrowing in mock contemplation. Very abstract, but acceptable. He set the cup down and stepped closer, the dynamics shifting, laughter subsiding into anticipation. "What are you really thinking?" she asked, her voice softening, curiosity pulling at her like a tide. He took a moment before replying, the weight of his gaze anchoring her in place. "I've been thinking how much I admire your courage. You handle chaos better than anyone I know." A soft blush crept across her cheeks. "You've got the wrong person. Courage? That's a grand term. I'm just surviving." "Surviving is a form of courage," he replied, his voice thick with sincerity. "You don't see that, but I do." Their eyes locked, the universe tightening around them. Sefina felt the raw honesty in his words seep through the cracks of her defenses, challenging her to embrace a piece of herself she had long ignored. "You don't have to protect me, Zaire," she whispered, afraid of the vulnerability creeping into her voice. "I do, whether you want it or not," he said firmly, a hardness creeping back into his tone. "You've seen things, Sefina. Dangerous things. He paused, the air suddenly heavy with unspoken words. "I can't let anything happen to you." The sunlight deepened, casting golden shadows over his strong features, blending intimate understanding with the threat of the world outside. She searched his expression, filled with that familiar mix of reassurance and an undercurrent of something darker, his determination. "What about you? Who protects you?" she ventured, her heart fluttering wildly beneath the protective layers of her armor. He stepped closer, the warmth of his body radiating toward her. "I can handle myself," he murmured, but the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes stirred something deep within her. "But you make it harder to fight alone." The gentle stirring of storms outside buzzed stubbornly against the windows, the sky darkening as if mirroring the tempest building inside her. The beat of her heart raced, filling the silence where his admission lingered like a potent promise. She could feel every nerve-ending wake, a flurry of both excitement and apprehension coursing through her. "Zaire," she began, yet the cautious words dangled on her lips, hesitant to take flight. Would he see the depth of her fear? "Just trust me," he interjected softly, his tone both captivating and soothing. "Just for this moment, trust me." A smile spread across her face, a half-moon dipped in honey. Trust is surprisingly difficult in a world filled with secrets, especially the dark ones. His voice was low, the intensity undeniable, and he was inches away now, the warmth of him enveloping her completely. In an instinctive pull, her hand reached out to cup his cheek. The gesture felt irrevocable, a tether binding their palpable tension. "Or maybe it's just that I've never had someone to rely on before," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Zaire leaned into her touch, a powerful force in that simple act, a commitment offered without words. "Then let me be that someone," he said gently, their gazes meshing, the promise of safety hanging between them like an unbreakable thread. In that moment, the air carried both storm and serenity, two souls adrift and suddenly intimately intertwined. Scene 85. Grounded in each other. The rain drizzled lazily against the tall windows of Zaire's dimly lit penthouse, the soft patter merging with the faint jazz curling through the air. Sefina stood at the grand piano, her fingers dancing lightly over the keys, creating a melody that resonated deep within her. The room was a sanctuary shrouded in shadows, its richness accentuated by the gleam of polished wood and delicate glass sculptures that whispered of old-world elegance. Each note hung in the air like fragile dew, heavy with unspoken feelings. Zaire, leaning against the entrance, couldn't help but notice the way the backlighting framed Sefina, sending a halo around her. Her fiery curls fell wildly around her shoulders, and though her expression remained serious, there was an effortless grace in everything she did. The contrast of her artistry with the tension that rippled through them felt electric. He clenched his jaw, his mind a battlefield of thoughts. "Play me something happy," he said, trying for lightness, even as the worry etched into his features contradicted his words. Sefina glanced back at him, lips curling slightly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Happy? You know, Zaire, I don't think I've ever understood that concept. It seems dated." She raised an eyebrow mischievously, trying to mask the tension that lingered like vapor in the air. "Your therapist would have a good laugh at that," he shot back, the corner of his mouth almost twitching into a smile before he steeled himself. "Come on, Sefina. Remember, even the darkest clouds have silver linings." "You mean like you?" she quipped, her fingers pausing midair as she looked back at him, her gaze holding his. The energy in the room shifted palpably, the playful banter dissipating. Zaire took a few steps forward, the smooth pitter-patter of rain becoming a gentle backdrop to their growing tension. "You know you have the power to change your narrative. Don't shrink yourself to fit someone else's story," he encouraged, his voice low yet urgent. Each word hung in the air, a command and an invitation. Sefina's heart raced. He was further into her orbit than anyone had ever been, but instead of feeling afraid, she leaned into that notion. "Maybe I don't want to change it," she replied, her voice delicate yet defiant. "What I want is to understand what's beneath the surface, to know what you're hiding." He raised an eyebrow, a hint of vulnerability flickering in his eyes. "And what would you do if you found out I've been the one holding your hand in the dark?" Sefina stepped away from the piano, her breaths coming quicker. "Then I'd say it's time you showed yourself. I need to know if I can trust you, if I can trust this." She gestured between them, the unspoken barrier threatening to unravel everything they had built. Zaire moved closer, their bodies no more than a breath apart, an electric pull drawing them into a world where only they existed. He searched her eyes, finding the ghosts of past betrayals, but also a flicker of something bold. "Sometimes trust is found in the leap. Will you jump with me, Sefina?" Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, the surroundings fading into a blur. "What if I don't know how to land?" she challenged boldly, a flush of vulnerability beneath her resolute facade. "Then I'll be there to catch you," he said, the promise deep and genuine. The warmth of his closeness enveloped her. She found herself surrendering to that shield of protection he gently offered. Zaire hesitated, then lowered his gaze slowly to her lips, searching her expression. "This what's between us, it's as powerful as it is scary." The rain intensified, cascading down the glass with fervor, mirroring the storm brewing within them. Sefina's breath caught. "I'm not afraid anymore. Not with you." The unyielding tension morphed, shifting into a beautiful wrestling match of closeness and desire. His hand, tentatively at first, went to her cheek, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Zaire drew her closer, their breaths mingling beneath the heavy tension, a prelude that felt monumental. Just as their lips began to curate their own destiny, everything faded, a heartbeat flickering into darkness, suspended in that waltz of possibility, intimacy, and trust. As they lingered on the precipice of their new reality, Sefina whispered, "I trust you, Zaire, but let's ensure we're grounded in each other." Scene 86. Venturing forward, the worn wood of the kitchen table bore the marks of countless moments, scratches, coffee rings, and even a faint line where a small vase had once sheltered a proud flower. Sefina's fingers traced a groove in the grain, the familiar action a grounding ritual amidst the world outside their modest, cozy apartment. Rain drummed insistently against the window, rhythmically tapping out a symphony that felt both melancholic and filled with possibility. As the clouds swirled like silken shawls in a painter's brush, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, rich and inviting. Zaire stepped into the kitchen, rolling up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt. He moved with purpose, calling out, "I thought you were going to help me choose the art for the new gallery wall. Last time you said it felt stuffy. What do you think of this one?" He held up a bold canvas splashed with vibrant colors that spoke of joy and chaos in equal measure. Sefina glanced over, a smile breaking through her contemplative demeanor. "That piece looks like a party I wasn't invited to," she teased, arching an eyebrow. "Too much going on. It gives me anxiety just looking at it." Zaire chuckled, shaking his head playfully. "Well, I'm sorry you weren't included. I could always add a little frame around it, keep it caged like a wild animal. She leaned back in her chair, the playful banter drawing her out of her thoughts. Oh, please, anything but a cage. I'd rather have a disco ball to distract from the chaos. Disco ball it is, then. Zaire replied with mock seriousness, moving closer and pretending to measure an imaginary ball above their heads. The tension from earlier in the week seemed to evaporate with each laugh that danced between them, his warm presence wrapping around her like a soft blanket. As the rain continued its soft serenade, Sefina turned serious, able to feel the weight of their dad-to-day struggles creeping back in. Do you think we're really ready for this? Everything? The gallery? Moving in together? She hesitated, the fear of vulnerability creeping through her voice. Zaire leaned against the counter, arms crossed, observing her intently. We've gone through more in a year than most couples go through in a lifetime, Sefina. If we can survive watching you fumble through painting classes. Hey, I resemble that remark, she interrupted, giggling. There's nothing wrong with a little artistic exploration. Besides, I'm the one who's supposed to rescue you from existential despair. He winked, finally easing back into that familiar tone of confidence laced with humor. Rescue? I'm fairly certain you just enjoy watching me spill paint everywhere, she countered, rolling her eyes but unable to hide her budding smile. Well, that too, he admitted, his grin widening. But seriously, when I think about the future, all I see is you. I see us. That's what we're building toward, right? The room seemed to pulse with their shared energy, as if something precious was being forged amid the playful banter and laughter. Sefina could feel the edges of her doubt soften, their conversations reminding her of the closeness they had fought so hard to achieve. Then, as if in perfect synchrony with the thunder rumbling outside, Zaire's demeanor shifted. He sidled closer, the air thick with unspoken words. We'll face whatever comes together, Sefina, he murmured, his voice low and serious, eyes glimmering with earnestness. I'm not just promising to protect you. I want to build a life with you. The gallery, your art, everything. But it means you can't hide anymore. Sefina's breath caught in her throat. She loved the way he believed in her, yet the notion of leaning into this deeper intimacy felt daunting. People like us don't get happy endings, Zaire. We have too much history, too many scares. He closed the distance between them, tilting her chin up gently with his fingers, sending warmth through her skin. And maybe that makes our story more beautiful, doesn't it? His eyes locked onto hers, and time slipped away as the rain played its soothing melody. Let the world fall apart. I want to stand right here with you. The space between them crackled with tension, both electric and soothing. Without a word, Zaire leaned in, capturing her lips with his, the kiss soft and searching at first, then deepening like a secret unspooling in the dark. Sefina melted into him, a sense of completeness, of love washing over her like the rain outside. As they pulled apart, Zaire whispered, "We'll leave the darkness behind, together." Sefina nodded, her heart racing, filled with hope and the promise of what was to come. Scene 87. Unveiling Hidden Truths. The dim light from the single bulb in Zaire's living room cast flickering shadows against the walls, adorned with rich, deep colors of mahogany and midnight blue. Sefina stood near the window, the cool glass reflecting the chaos outside. Sirens wailed in the distance, muffled by the weight of the secrets that had just been unearthed between them, like a heavy fog that settled in the room. An unsteady breeze carried the scent of rain and a hint of smoke, mingling with the tension in the air, palpable and thick. "Tell me about him," Zaire said, his voice low like a deep river, pulling Sefina from her thoughts. "You can trust me." His gaze bore into her, unwavering, filled with a subtle warmth that contrasted with the chill creeping up her spine. Still, she hesitated, the fragile threads of her past wrapped tightly around her heart. Sefina crossed her arms, reminding herself of the strength she had cultivated over the years, yet it felt like the storm brewing outside pocketed her breath. "It's not that simple," she replied, her tone equal parts defiance and vulnerability. "He was someone I thought would protect me, but that turned out to be a lie." Her voice trembled on the last word, and she steeled herself, holding his gaze as though it could solidify her resolve. Silence hung heavily between them, suffocating yet electric. The pulse of uncertainty swirled as if inviting something unspoken to break free. You don't have to relive it, Zaire said, his eyes softening, the edges of his voice laced with genuine concern. I wish I could skip to the part where I'm okay, she admitted, a tremor of laughter escaping her lips, though it tasted bittersweet. Instead, I'm here, one foot in the past and one in the unknown. He stepped forward, a powerful presence that filled the space with warmth. Living in the unknown is scary, but you're not alone anymore. He reached out, his fingers brushing against hers lightly, a feather's touch that sent a ripple of awareness coursing through her. A warm current of unvoiced promises hovered in the air, looming as an anchor against the storm. Do you really believe that? She whispered, the storm of her heart echoing the chaos outside. There was something in his eyes, a depth she'd never seen before, and depth that pierced her countless walls. She longed to believe him, to let go of the weight that held her back. He took a breath, as if gathering courage. I want you to see all of me. The good, the bad, the messy, Zaire replied, leaning closer until they were almost nose to nose. Because that's what this is about, right? Vulnerability, bridging the chasm between us. Her pulse quickened, caught between desire and fear, their breaths mingling in an electric haze where silence spoke volumes. Every ounce of intimacy they had shared frolicked on the edge of a precipice. Zaire, she murmured, feeling weightless and grounded in the same heartbeat. What if we plunge in and drown? The air was alive with the tension between them, like static before a storm, for the chance to breathe in the sunlight afterward. He countered, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. I'll throw you a life raft, I promise. His playful tone cut through the serious moment, yet his gaze remained earnest, urging her to take the leap. At that moment, everything blurred into insignificance. The noise outside, the unresolved past, even the threat that loomed like a specter. But their locked gaze held the potential for everything that could unfold. The chemistry electrified the air, igniting something primal within her. With a sudden shift, she closed the distance, the warmth of his body igniting in her. Their lips met, tentative at first, a soft brush that rippled through the layers of their uncertainty, crescendos of emotions dancing in dizzying spirals. She tasted vulnerability on his lips, the richness of unspoken words crowding the space between them, painting a picture that only they could see. As they pulled apart, the world crept back, but the intensity lingered. Zaire, she breathed, searching his eyes. I can't promise I'm ready. Just promise me you'll try, Sefina, he whispered, his voice anchored in earnestness, because I'll always be here, ready to catch you. And amidst the swirling shadows, a light flickered, illuminating their path forward. Scene 88, making plans together. Rain danced against the large window of Sefina's modest studio, a steady rhythm that filled the quiet space with a soothing cadence. The scent of damp earth infiltrated the air, mingling with the aromatic hints of espresso from the steaming mug resting on the table between them. Despite the weather's dreariness, the atmosphere crackled with an impending storm of a different sort, one sparked by the palpable tension that simmered under the surface of their conversation. Sefina sat cross-legged on the worn, plush rug, sketchbook resting on her thigh. Her pencil flickered over the page, creating delicate lines that flowed into vivid shapes as she stole glances at Zaire. He stood at the counter, pouring himself a second cup, the shirt he wore slightly damp from the humidity. It clung just enough to hint at the contours of his strong back, a sight that stirred something deep within her. Coffee? Zaire offered, tilting the carafe towards her. The warmth radiated from him like a protective shield, even as her heart raced with the vulnerability of this moment. Thanks, but I think I'll stick to my. She held up the half-full mug, the dark liquid swirling within. Art fuel. Zaire chuckled softly, his eyes glinting with mischief. Art fuel? Are you expecting an exhibition or something? Sefina grinned, her spirit momentarily lifting as she imagined hosting an event with Zaire by her side. Maybe I'll call it The Collection of Chaos. It might be a hit. The chaos aspect definitely resonates with me. He leaned on the counter, arms crossed, the playful vibe ebbing into something deeper. But what I really want to know is, how do you see your future shaping up? Are you asking me about my grand plans? Sefina's brows lifted, skepticism threading through her tone. There's a chance I'm more interested in your plans than you think, he said, his gaze unwavering. She shifted, uncertain of the intensity behind his question. I suppose it depends on how chaotic the world continues to be. I can't paint a picture of safety when I don't even know what tomorrow looks like. Zaire stepped closer, the distance between them diminishing until the sound of their breath filled the space. I can help you create that safety. Sefina's heart stuttered at the weight of his offer. You make it sound so easy, just one flick of a brush and everything is fine. Maybe it's less about easiness and more about us sticking together. He leaned over, placing his palms on the table, framing her sketchbook, their eyes locking. You don't have to go it alone. A roar of thunder made them both jump, the sky outside mirroring the tumult in Sefina's heart. You think I can trust easily, don't you? Her voice barely rose above a whisper. People make decisions based on their own needs, and I've had enough of that. You can't deny that. Zaire straightened, the warmth in his eyes steely now, his voice firm. I'm not them, Sefina. I've done my share of mistakes, and I'm not here to repeat them. I want to protect you, even if you don't want me to. The tension coiled tighter between them, vibrantly alive. And how do you think you can do that? She challenged, emboldened by the surge of emotion. By being here when you need someone, he replied, his voice low. By showing you that shelter can come from someone who doesn't want anything but your trust. Sounds like a Herculean task, Zaire. Do you always take on overwhelming challenges? She couldn't help but let out a breathy laugh, brushing the tips of her fingers against his, as if the electricity connecting them would spark a fire. Zaire held her gaze, a slow smile breaking across his face. It's called the Sefina Challenge. I'm all in. Just think about it. Challenge accepted, then. She echoed his playful tone, determination fluttering in her chest. But I warn you, I have a tendency to complicate things. I'd expect nothing less, he said, leaning back as the rain tapped on the window, a gentle applause just for them. So what's next for this artist with a penchant for chaos? A few sketches. Maybe an event if I can muster the courage. The world needs a reminder that art can be born from chaos, she said, infusing hope into her voice, creating room for the laughter she undeniably craved from within. Count me in, Zaire teased softly, his eyes shining like the sun peeking through clouds. Let's make sure your grand plans don't just stay on the page. And in that moment, amidst the rain and warmth, she knew there was something tangible to build upon, a shared future that sparkled with possibility. With that thought, an idea ignited, one that demanded both bravery and trust. Scene 89, fleeting moments of normalcy. The kitchen was filled with the rich aroma of sautéed garlic and onions, their scents intertwining like an unbreakable bond. Zaire stood at the stove, flicking the heat lower on the bubbling pot of lentils, savoring the warmth that had little to do with the simmering ingredients. Each movement was practiced, deliberate, yet somehow seamless, a stark reminder of the normalcy they so desperately needed amid the chaos surrounding them. Sefina leaned against the countertop, a towel draped over her shoulder, observing him with a mix of admiration and playful exasperation. She couldn't help but notice the way the light caught the angles of his face, the slight furrow in his brow as he focused. Are you sure you've not made a scientific discovery with those lentils? She teased, her tone light despite the weightiness of their circumstances. Zaire glanced over his shoulder, a shadow of a smile tugging at his lips. If they can save us from ambushed dinners, then yes, you might consider me a culinary revolutionary. He stirred the pot with a wooden spoon, the rhythmic clank against the metal echoing in the spacious room. A soft laugh escaped her, bubbling up like the steam rising from the pan. Sefina stepped closer, her presence warming the air between them. Well, Mr. Revolutionary, I believe 1,000 health blogs will go viral over your world-famous lentils. Perhaps you should start a YouTube channel. He turned fully, leaning against the counter, his gaze locking onto hers, intensifying that invisible thread connecting them. And what would you name it? His tone dripped with mock seriousness. Cooking with chaos, she replied, her eyes shining with mirth. You can show people how to whip up dinner while dodging assassins. Zaire's laughter bellowed, rich and genuine, easing the tension that had settled around their shoulders like a heavy coat. But you'd be the co-star, he added, his voice dropping slightly, weaving sincerity into the jest. What's a revolution without a fearless journalist documenting every disaster? Disaster is my specialty. She crossed her arms, leaning slightly into his space. I mean, let's look at the facts. I found myself trapped in a murder investigation, under the protection of a crime boss, perpetually avoiding life-threatening situations. Zaire raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Still, you've got to admit it adds a certain excitement to the usual Sunday evening. Sefina chuckled lightly, shaking her head, her eyes darting to the floor before returning to his. Excitement? More like an angst-ridden thriller. The real question is, what's driving you to spend your precious time cooking for me? He hesitated, a moment of vulnerability flickering in his gaze that had her leaning in further. Just because I'm wrapped up in a world of chaos doesn't mean I can't appreciate a simple meal and simpler moments. Besides, I owe you for the last outing. We can't have you going hungry in this lunacy. She feigned offense, placing a hand dramatically over her heart. You wound me, Zaire. I'm a woman of many appetites. Is that so? He pushed off the counter, stepping closer, invading her personal space with a gently teasing intent. We might need to explore that then. Heat sparked between them, an unspoken tension that thrummed beneath the surface, urging breathless anticipation. They were on the precipice of something vast and unknown, the uncharted territory of intimacy sweeter than the cloves of garlic wafting through the room. Remember the last time we explored your appetites? He murmured lowly, a hint of mischief in his voice. Let's refrain from discussing how I attempted to bake my feelings away and nearly set your kitchen on fire, shall we? She shot back, laughter piercing the air, but the weight of truth tethered to her words. Zaire's eyes softened, grounding the moment. But I loved it. You added color to my life, even if it came with a side of disaster. Their gazes locked, and in that moment they both felt the undeniable pull, a magnetic charge that stirred the air, charged with everything they hadn't said, everything they were too afraid to confront. I never thought cooking would reveal this side of you, Sefina said quietly, biting her lower lip, eyes wide with unmasked admiration. And I never thought that chaos could feel so right, Zaire replied, taking a step closer, tilting his head slightly, dissecting every subtle movement of her expression. In an instant, the distance diminished, hands brushed, and their laughter faded into a moment thick with charge, heightened by anticipation. As the noise of the simmering pot faded into the background, the unyielding reality of their world loomed, reminding them of what they'd yet to face. Yet here, in this fleeting moment of normalcy, they were just Zaire and Sefina, two people brought together by choices, dreams, and a lingering connection that defied explanation. Maybe we need more moments like this, Sefina suggested softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe we do, Zaire murmured, his voice rich with possibility, the essence of their world resting on the precipice of something extraordinary, and yet so delicately, beautifully human. Scene 90. The calm before the storm. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the sprawling city of Los Angeles. The warm breeze wafted through the lush garden surrounding Sefina Agbo's art studio, carrying the heady scent of jasmine, intertwined with the sharpness of freshly cut grass. Bright splashes of color adorned the outdoor space in the form of vibrant flowers and scattered paintbrushes. Sefina stood amid the chaos, the remnants of her creative frenzy still evident, brushes resting haphazardly in pots and canvases leaning against walls like long-lost friends. Zaire Oladipo leaned against the wooden railing, a comforting yet imposing presence with his broad shoulders silhouetted against the fading light. As he watched Sefina lose herself in her work, the tension that usually gripped him slowly began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of rare tranquility. He admired her, finding solace in her focus, her vibrant spirit shining through as she added delicate strokes to her latest piece. Zaire, she said suddenly, glancing back at him, a smudge of blue paint gracing her left cheek. You could help me with that if you weren't just going to stand there looking broody. He raised an eyebrow, a smirk teasing his lips. I'm trying to perfect my broody look. It's a choice, Sefina. Oh, I thought it was more of a condition. She turned back to her canvas, mixing colors, her laughter dancing in the air. It was a sound he had come to cherish, a light in the dark, buffer against the uncertainties looming just beyond their peaceful bubble. Zaire moved closer, the intimacy of the moment interrupting the rhythm of her strokes. A condition that prevents you from seeing the genius of my dark, brooding disposition, he teased, a playful fire coaxed to life within him. Sefina shot him a challenging glance. The only genius here is in my art, not your exaggerated self-importance. With a sudden flourish, she splattered paint onto the canvas, nearly catching him. Hey, Zaire laughed, dodging the paint like a skilled dancer. Now you're just taking advantage of the magnificent distraction I offer. Oh, please, she replied, crossing her arms. You're no distraction. You're just a persistent annoyance. Annoyance? That hurts, Sefina. He feigned a dramatic gasp, placing a hand on his chest. But it's good to know I'm on your mind. Persistent, eh? Guess I just have that effect on people. On some people, she shot back, rolling her eyes, but unable to stifle her smile. Actually, let's be honest, no one else would even attempt to deal with you. As the banter continued, an unexpected vulnerability rippled through the moment. Zaire's smile faded, gravity pulling at him. Sefina, he began, voice suddenly low and earnest. Do you really feel that way? About me? Sefina halted, the playful edge of their argument slipping away. What do you mean? She asked, her tone shifting. I mean, you're always so strong, so fierce, but sometimes I fear you see me as just this stubborn man who insists on being here. Maybe I'm an annoyance, but I'm not just here to pester you. I want to know you. His eyes softened, embers of sincerity replacing the earlier jest. She took a breath, her heart racing against the tidal wave of his honesty. Zaire, what you see as strength is sometimes a mask. Just because I can handle chaos doesn't mean I want to. I don't want to need you. Why not? He pressed, stepping closer, closing the gap between them. Needing someone can be beautiful, not a weakness. Beautiful or not, she retorted, the tremor in her voice unmistakable. It terrifies me. I don't know how to let someone like you in. There it is again, he replied, a glimmer of mischief returning. The fear of intimacy, the dark shadow looming over the sunny garden. Zaire, she started, but he cut her off. I know, he raised his hands in mock defense. Let's not dwell on the past. Let's instead paint a new canvas, one without shadows, filled with vibrant colors of trust. Before she could respond, his presence loomed larger, cutting through the tension like a cool breeze. But to do that, I'm going to need you to let me in. The air was thick with unspoken emotions, the weight of their connection palpable. Sefina felt her breath hitch, the storm of her feelings swirling just beneath the surface, battling the lightness of their earlier exchange. Okay, she whispered, surrendering to the moment, drawing closer to him, their hearts pounding in unison. Let's paint this thing together. Together, Zaire echoed, determination settling upon him, a newly found anchor amidst the chaos. As they embraced the moment, a shadow flickered through the garden, a distant reminder of the challenges waiting just outside their haven. For now, laughter danced in the air, but storms were brewing on the horizon. Scene 91. Rising to the challenge. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays through the high windows of Sefina Agbo's art studio. A cool afternoon breeze wove through the curtains, ruffling papers that were scattered across the tables, remnants of her recent chaos. Canvases leaned in quiet defiance against the walls, each one a testament to her evolving heart, a silent protest against the turmoil swirling outside her door. Sefina stood at her easel, a brush poised above a fresh canvas. Her chestnut eyes were fixed on the empty expanse, yet her mind was miles away, lingering on the shadows lurking at the edges of her life. With a shaky exhale, she dipped the brush into a vibrant cobalt blue, the color gliding to life under her touch. It was both an act of creation and a desperate cry for clarity. Just then, the heavy front door creaked open. Zaire Oladipo entered, framed by the fading sunlight, a silhouette of strength, his presence commanding the room with an undercurrent of tension that pulled taut like a bowed string. He took in the disarray, his lips tugging slightly at the corners as he approached her, the rich scent of coffee wafting in behind him, anchoring the moment with warmth. Wow, this place looks lived in, Zaire remarked, leaning against the doorframe. His voice was teasing, but the worry lining the edges was impossible to miss. It's a work in progress, Sefina replied, her tone light but her smile faltering. She turned back to the canvas, avoiding his gaze. Like my life, I suppose. Zaire stepped forward, his gaze sharpening. You're not responsible for how messy life gets, Sefina, just as long as you keep painting. She felt the weight of his words, an echo of a deeper understanding that transcended their flirtations and veiled tensions. Maybe, or maybe I should start explaining to the world why I'm such a disaster, she mused, flicking her brush as she spoke, cobalt blue splattering slightly against the wooden floor. She winced. Oops. Zaire chuckled, kneeling down to clean up the splatters, his fingers brushing against her ankles as he moved. I think they'd get the picture. Just one look at your art, and they'd get a full season's worth of drama and chaos. True, she offered, the warmth of his presence blooming within her. But mine isn't the only disaster at play. You've got a whole storm brewing around you, too. For a moment, silence enveloped them before he straightened, a serious glint cutting through the playful atmosphere. I'm not here to offer vague comfort while pretending it's all going to be fine. I'm here because you matter. You're in danger, Sefina, and I won't have you thinking you can resolve this on your own. Danger? Sefina echoed, half exhilarated, half terrified. Is that what we're talking about now? Zaire moved closer, the space between them shrinking. You're not going to shrug off your fears. I won't allow it. We fight this together, whatever it is, because running away is no longer an option. She drew a deep breath, her heart racing. And what's your part in this? Heroic rescues? Avenging my chaos, he smirked, that teasing glint returning, but the sincerity lingered. Think of me as your sidekick, here to help rescue you from yourself. Or perhaps to rescue you from bad decisions, she shot back, her cheeks flushing. The levity in her tone clashed with the gravity of their conversation, underscoring the electric connection sparking between them. I'll own that. Just don't be mad when I swoop in, cape and all. At that, laughter bubbled between them, breaking through the tension. Still smiling, he softened, leaning in closer, their breaths mingling, a tantalizing closeness that spoke volumes without any words. But seriously, Zaire said, lowering his voice, I'm in this for the long haul. Not just your safety, but your heart. Let me help you. Sefina felt a flutter deep inside, a feeling both beautiful and terrifying. Fine, but heroics come with a bonus. We navigate this chaos together, and you can hold a paintbrush if I need backup. Zaire raised an eyebrow, a playful spark igniting in his gaze. Okay, but if I do, I'm painting the world pink. You know that, right? She burst into laughter, her heart swelling in defiance of the chaos surrounding them, challenging, resonant, and undeniably exhilarating. Deal, she said, her voice steady, locking eyes with him as if to forge a pact. The future loomed ahead, uncertain but filled with promise. They would rise to the challenge together. Scene 92, a love tested again. The air hummed with tension as Sefina Agbo leaned against the sleek granite countertop of her kitchen, staring out the large window where the sun waned, casting deep shadows that mirrored the turmoil in her heart. Just the day before, she had almost lost everything. Her cafe, once a nesting place of vibrancy and laughter, now stood vulnerable, the threat of Zaire's world creeping closer. She absently wiped her hands on her apron, leaving faint streaks of flour on the fabric, the tactile reminder of her career fraying at the edges. Zaire Oladipo walked into the kitchen with a heavy sigh, the weight of his wariness almost palpable. His tall frame cast an imposing shadow in the golden light, yet today it felt as if the darkness surrounding him seeped into the very air between them. She turned to face him, her expression resolute. Do you realize how reckless you've been? Her voice broke the silence, sharp but tinged with an undercurrent of fear. Reckless? Zaire countered, his brows knitting together in frustration. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted you to witness that? I was trying to keep you safe. Safe? Or is it that you wanted to keep me in the dark like I've always been? The words slipped from her lips before she could stop them, each one steeped in the hurt of betrayal and the bitter taste of secrecy. This isn't about keeping you in the dark, Sefina. He stepped closer, his voice low but intense. The richness of his tone wrapped around her, urging her to listen. You know I wouldn't put you in danger on purpose. Our lives are intertwined, and you make it sound like I'm some villain. A silence stretched, thick and charged, wrapping around them. Sefina swallowed hard, the pulsating beat of her heart drowning out the distant sounds of the city outside. She couldn't let his intensity sway her. Not now. "What else are you hiding from me?" she pressed, her voice a tense whisper as she leaned forward. Zaire's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of vulnerability escaping the steel facade he maintained. "It's not about hiding. It's about protecting what's ours. You think it's easy balancing this life, Sefina? I won't let you go down with me." A humorless laugh escaped her lips, an involuntary reaction to how painfully true his statement was. "And in trying to protect me, you give me the feeling of being trapped. It's a different kind of prison." He sighed, a deep rumble filled with decades of burdens he carried alone. "You think I want to cage you? You with your wild spirit? I can't stand the thought of a single scar on you, even if it's self-inflicted." His voice softened, the urgency giving way to something almost pleading. "I can't lose you." Sefina felt the battle inside her simmer, resisting the warmth radiating from his concern. "You have to choose a different way to protect me. This," she gestured between them, summoning the palpable tension of their connection to life. "This isn't working." Zaire's jaw clenched slightly, his muscles tight with unsaid fears. "Then tell me what is, Sefina, because all I see is the storm gathering on the horizon and you standing in the middle of it." A flicker of anger surged within her. "Stop trying to be the hero. I can fight my own battles." The fire in her words lingered in the space between them. "Can you? Because I see you drowning right now." His gaze held hers, fierce and unyielding, stirring feelings she had buried beneath layers of bravado. "I'm not drowning," she shot back, then paused, her breath catching. I need to know that I'm not the only one fighting." For a heartbeat, silence enveloped them again. Then, as if conjured from the depths of need, he stepped closer, closing the distance with a raw urgency. "You're not alone," he said, his voice a low murmur that reverberated through her. "I'm here." And in a world painted by shadows, enveloped in the scent of lingering spices and the warmth of the fading sunlight, Sefina reached out, resting her hand against his heart, feeling the rhythm of their shared truths steadying between them. "Just don't hide, Zaire, not from me." He exhaled slowly, a soft smile emerging, like dawn's first light creeping through the darkness. "Never again." Scene 93. Reflections on the past. The low drum of rain pattered against the window, each drop creating an intimate rhythm within the confines of Zaire's sleek, modern office. A vibrant cityscape sprawled beneath them, a mix of glimmering lights and looming shadows, reminding both Zaire and Sefina of the world waiting just outside the sanctuary they had built with conversations and half-truths. "Do you ever wonder if you could have changed things?" Zaire's voice sliced through the air, tentative but sharp. He sat on the edge of his polished desk, fingers digging into the smooth surface as if it could hold the weight of his turmoil. Sefina paused, her gaze drawn to the outside, where streetlights flickered in the gathering gloom. The room felt thick with unsaid words, the air charged as if a storm was brewing beneath the surface. "You mean, like if you hadn't?" She trailed off, hesitant. Zaire's silence seemed to expand, pressing against them like a living thing. For a moment, the only sound was the rhythmic beating of rain, a somber orchestra accompanying the heaviness between them. When he finally spoke, his voice held a tremor of something deeper. "I was reckless, Sefina. Do you think that's what led to everything?" Shifting her weight, Sefina moved closer, the warmth from her body brimming with unspoken support. "You think you're the only one who's ever messed up?" Her teasing tone was laced with seriousness, a counterbalance to the weighty shadows of his past. "We're all a little broken, Zaire. That's what makes us human." He glanced up, a flicker of surprise in his deep brown eyes. "Human?" "Yes, human," she replied, a playful smile breaking the tension. "Last time I checked, you have 2 legs, 2 arms, and apparently the ability to brood spectacularly." The corner of Zaire's mouth lifted subtly, but the underlying guilt remained like a shadow in his eyes. "Brooding is a talent I perfected during those late nights," he shot back, a hint of warmth seeping into his reply. "But I'd trade it all if it meant I could change the past." "What would you change exactly?" she prodded, leaning in, curiosity sparkling in her expression. Zaire hesitated, then lowered his voice, drawing her closer into his world of confessions. "There are people he began, the words catching in his throat as he wrestled with the ghosts. "People I couldn't protect. I didn't realize how deeply that would haunt me." Sefina's breath caught, the rawness in his voice striking a chord deep within her. "You saved me," she whispered, her own past trembling at the edges of their conversation. "Isn't that enough to keep you going?" "Saving you wasn't enough," he replied, his gaze unwavering, unwaveringly intense. "I've done wrong, Sefina. I've lived in the shadows too long." Her pulse quickened, feeling the sharpness of honesty in the air between them. "You're not that man anymore." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm, grounding him. "You're standing here, now, choosing to face whatever comes with me." He held her gaze, the room falling into a silence that seemed more profound than anything constructed with words. In that moment, Sefina saw who Zaire could be, a man not just fighting the shadows of his past, but one who might find the light amid them. The raw intensity of their connection crackled in the air, unspoken words reverberating between their souls. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the street below, breaking the charged silence. They both jumped, the tension shattering like glass. "Guess you can't escape chaos for long," Sefina laughed nervously, trying to ease the moment. "Maybe we should shovel your brooding into a corner." Zaire chuckled, the heaviness momentarily lifting. "I do have a shovel, you know." "Perfect, because I hear it pairs well with your brooding and half-assed existential crises," she teased, her smile brightening the room. As the rain poured outside, they stood together, the city pulsing with life beneath them. "Okay," Zaire said, finally allowing a glimmer of resolve to emerge. "Maybe we can trade some of our shadows for a little light." "Like a shadow puppet show?" Sefina quipped, her grin teasing him as she took a step back, raising an eyebrow. "Only if you promise to lead," he replied, the warmth returning to his voice. Together, through laughter and light, they faced the uncertainties ahead, knowing that facing the past was merely the first step toward embracing a future entwined with hope. Scene 94. Conversations unfold. The gallery walls shimmered under the soft glow of string lights, casting a warm halo around the eclectic artwork, vivid strokes of crimson and cobalt that mirrored the storm brewing just beneath Sefina's surface. She stood by a canvas, her fingers brushing its textured edges, attempting to ground herself in the moment. Zaire leaned against the doorframe, watching her with the intensity of a predator. The silence thickened between them, heavy with unspoken words and invisible threads of tension. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Sefina finally broke the quiet, her voice shaky. She glanced up, meeting his gaze, then quickly back to the canvas. "It captures chaos and beauty, I guess like life itself." Zaire stepped closer, the scent of cedar and earth enveloping her. "It's captivating, but it's what's behind the beauty that holds the real story. Isn't that what you always say?" She bit her lip, caught off guard. "It's easier to paint the picture than to live it." Her eyes flickered back to him, seeking. "You know that more than anyone." "Maybe it's time we both look behind the canvas, Sefina." Zaire's voice was composed, but a storm brewed in his eyes. "You keep dodging the conversation." Sefina crossed her arms, a defensive gesture, but her heart raced at his words. "What conversation do you want? The one about how I saw you, how we're both wrapped in this mess?" With a sigh, Zaire ran a hand through his dark curls, tension unraveling in front of her. "We're messy, but we're also strong. You're stronger than you realize." "I'm not the one hiding my secrets." She squared her shoulders, heart pounding. His presence ignited sparks of conflict within her, excitement mixed with a pulsing fear of vulnerability. "Secrets exist for a reason," he countered, stepping closer, their eyes locking again. The room felt like it was closing in, heat rising between them. "But don't you think it's time to trust someone?" "Trust?" Sefina laughed lightly, but it had an edge. "How can I trust when the person I'm supposed to trust is the very reason I'm in this situation?" His expression shifted, a flash of hurt that he quickly masked. "I didn't choose this life, Sefina. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me?" she asked incredulously. "By dragging me into your world of shadows and lies? Wouldn't it have been easier to keep me in the dark?" "Keeping you in the dark would have meant abandoning you." The intensity of his gaze pierced through her, filled with truth she couldn't deny. "I refused to do that." She held her breath, the wind from the open window carrying the sense of spring-wet earth and budding flowers, a cruel reminder of beauty amid decay. "But this life you lead, it pulls at me, Zaire. It's intoxicating and terrifying all at once." You feel the pull because it's real, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's more than just the chaos. It's about choosing who you want to be in all of that. I don't know if I can choose, Sefina admitted, her walls quaking slightly. Every time I think I've got it figured out, everything shifts again. Zaire stepped even closer, now just an exhalation apart, the gravity of his presence overwhelming. What if I told you that all shiftings don't have to end in loss? What if we could create something together? Her mouth parted as hope and fear fought for dominance. Create what? A life full of uncertainties? Uncertainties are where the real beauty lies. He reached out, fingertips gliding along her forearm, sending electric warmth up her skin. You've painted your walls in chaos. Let me help you see them anew. Beneath their playful banter lingered unimaginable weight. Her eyes searched his, the unsaid fluttering in the charged atmosphere. What if I can't let you, Zaire? Then let me show you, he implored, stepping back just enough to let her breathe, but not entirely breaking the connection.